Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, of course, is Jeremy Finestone. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. It is Fantasticamania week. We are in the spirit, feeling good. I'm wearing my mask here. This is right here from Mexico. It's an octagon mask, a classic guy there from Mexican wrestling. And I believe we're sporting a Magneto.
Magneto! Well,
All
number
right.
one, we have X-Men 97 coming next month, which is the return of, there we go. It's the return of the animated series from the 90s, and I'm super excited. And you were going to pull off this hat, and I was like, oh, I got a reason for the Magneto helmet. So I'm super excited. I'm also excited for Fantasticamania and for whatever comments from the peanut gallery that we have today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fight Game Media. I'm Jeremy.
We're glad you're here.
Steven.
Glad you're here. No, I'm in the spirit. It's one of those things where I'm a big CMLL fan. I really do enjoy the product. I think they've got something really good going over there, and they are on a hot streak. We're going to talk a little bit more about them because there's a big event coming that's New Japan adjacent. But it always seems nice. Whenever I go down to Mexico, I tend to buy a lucha libre mask from a souvenir. That's my souvenir from Mexico each time. And of course, there you have to watch out. There's some sketchy. It's funny when you go to these tourist areas, Cozumel or Cancun, you have to be very careful because they say, oh yeah, we have lucha libre masks, and then it's a whole bunch of things like with the New Orleans Saints and now Atlanta Falcons logos on them, like the NFL, so that you can wear them in the crowd at NFL games or something of it. And I'll start naming off wrestlers, and I'll often get just a blank look, and they'll have to just call somebody in the back who actually knows who the hell I'm talking about. So it's like, and like I said, one time I asked for a Mistico mask, and the guy points to one with an M on it, and I said, Mil Mascaras. And so I told him in Spanish, I speak a little bit of Spanish, no, I actually know who the guys are. So if you have one like the Atlantis, or I was looking for Villano Tercera and things. And so, they kind of fumble over themselves, just kind of, oh, okay, this isn't some dumb drunk American that wants a Dallas Cowboy lucha hood. It's like, yeah,
I hope the real authentic deal here.
Yeah. So this one's octagon there. So, but
cool. I'm gonna admit, I'm gonna get myself a mask like that one day. I don't have any whatsoever. I got a couple of helmets back there. Got title belt. Just like to play around with the comic stuff. I'm a kind of a nerd like that. But yeah. So you're probably not going to be able to wear that mask for too much longer. So I'll take over the gig real quick while you regain yourself, and I'll do the little spiel about Fight Game Media.
If I want to read my notes, I have to take this thing off because I'm useless without my glasses. So I will do so now, and go ahead with your thing, and I'll be right back.
So we are part of Fight Game Media. We are a conglomerate of video and audio. You can find our podcasts when you search Fight Game Media everywhere, including podcasts, The Wrap, The Boom, The Dynamite Show, The 5-Star Joshi Show, and extras from Garrett Gonzalez. In addition to that, we have video shows here, Speaking of Strong Style, The Dynamite Show, and Power Bomb Shows. Power Bomb Shows recently had a great segment on Rochelle Rose and Reality of Wrestling with Booker T. I highly recommend you take time out of your day to check out that segment on our YouTube channel. It talks about stalking and power imbalances and being able to speak out for your own safety in wrestling. So make sure you do that. And I'm going to give it back to Steven while I take care of my helmet.
I'm glad you mentioned that segment that Power Bombshells did right there. It's two voices that we need in wrestling to talk about these things, because it's just a subject that we mentioned it last week when we were talking about some other issues. Just like sometimes cis white guys aren't necessarily the best one. You got plenty of that. But right. Sam and Mel bring a new perspective to it that's very healthy to the business, and it's very healthy to listen to there and to get that angle on it. So definitely recommend hearing that, because it is a pretty scary issue, and I'm sure that it's something that has come up many more times in wrestling than we've ever heard about, unfortunately. And it's sometimes it's just these cases that come out that get the attention, but I'm sure it's an issue that's been going and probably continues. So something important
that you need to keep quiet lest you make somebody look bad. It's far too common.
Yeah. And that's not needed. So hopefully we're on the way toward shining some light on some things that have been in the dark too long. Right.
Not fantastic at all, but you know what is?
It's Fantasticamania. That we just came off that very interesting new beginning in Osaka. It was a good show, but it was at the same time, I mentioned, I put those words poignant, violent, emotional, all at once. It was a big mix of things there. And then coming off that, the very next day, the stars of Lucha Libre hit Osaka, and they ran 2 straight shows in Osaka, one of which was on NJPW World. And it's a very abrupt tone shift. And it works, though. After New Beginning Osaka was a heavy show to watch, whether it was the hardcore steel cage match or the tearful goodbyes of Will Ospreay and Okada to the stuff about Goto's father. Fantasticamania is all about having fun. And it is a very loose atmosphere. You can see that the wrestlers are in a more loose mood, a little more playful than we would get. And there are some guys who are already playful who turn that up to 11, but some people who aren't necessarily always yucking it up out there are also having fun at Fantasticamania. So it was a real abrupt tone, and it was in the same building. Well, yeah. Well, Edion Arena. Okay. There's the Osaka Prefectural Gym, which we see all the time. That's just a big box building that looks like they probably fold up the basketball goals and put up a ring. Which is basically what that is, a little prefectural gym. It's in the same complex as Edion Arena. So that show, that New Beginning show that was all tears and blood and all that, it was in the same building as this kind of a playful thing the next day. It was an interesting little contrast there. And we got both versions of New Japan with that. So Fantasticamania began on the Monday there. That was February 12th. And let's go over it. What do you say? We just take a look at it?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to take very long. Is basically is the name of the game here, because this is all just light, fast happening, consequential but inconsequential. You kind of underlined it. It's a palate cleanser program in the middle of New Beginnings. We're jumping right back into New Beginnings in a couple weeks. We got the Nick Nemeth match. We got the Matt Riddle match. We got the hair match. We got the title match. Got multiple title matches. And the Okada goodbye. And so right now, it's just kind of like, here, guys, let's have a party. And we're having a party, including some things that I did not understand whatsoever. And I was ready to commit capital crime.
Wow. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm looking forward to hearing what that is. But what we had was a show also that set up a few things down the road. So there are little mini subplots to Fantasticamania that come back as they finish the shows up over this coming weekend, much of which we will get to see on NJPW World. So this one, Osaka Prefectural Gym number 2, 963 was the attendance. So pretty good crowd for this. Edion Arena, by the way, the building where they're in, that's where they do the Osaka sumo tournament. So it's almost like the sumo hall of Osaka. That's where that takes place. It's a pretty important building. It's interesting because New Japan also runs Osaka Joe Hall, often for Dominion, and that's a 16,000 seater. But it's an Edion Arena there that houses the Osaka sumo tournament. So it's a pretty important building there. It's all part of the same complex. In this one, we opened up with a tag team match between Doki and Defunto against Bone Soldier Jr. That is Taiji Ishimori in a get-up, a little costume there, and Geto. So you had a get-up and Geto as one team. They lost that one. Geto succumbed to the Doki Choki. Doki and Ishimori did some really good lucha in this one. It was overshadowed overshadowed a little bit by if he's the Bone Soldier, he made a bonehead move and made a gesture that we don't need in the world anymore. I guess he tried to get himself over as a heel.
Yeah, we kind of need to jump on that a little bit, but we'll get to that in a second.
Anyway, that was before the match even started. But Doki and Ishimori did some good lucha libre in this one. You can tell that Doki enjoys getting back into this. Of course, he spent years in the Japanese, on the Mexican independence before becoming a New Japan wrestler in the Mexican company. So he has a long history with lucha libre, and of course Ishimori can do just about everything. And like I mentioned, Doki Joki finish on Geto. Defunto, this is, I believe, his first tour, his first Fantasticamania, first time in Japan. And you can tell that he's there to kind of take falls, get his feet wet. They always try to bring over someone fairly early in their career just to give them the experience, I guess. And I think Defunto is one of the guys this year in that category.
Yeah, getting a little bit of a shot there. So we had our show on Monday, and we were asked about the militant gesture that reminded you of World War II in the very, very bad way.
Right.
And we were asked about it, and frankly, we hadn't seen it yet. I think I had heard about it after, and I'd kind of forgotten about it until Steven had mentioned it. And it got brought up, like, oh, yes. And then I saw it, and the best I can say is it was incredibly dumb judgment. I don't expect New Japan to apologize for the error in judgment. I really don't. They should, but I think they're just going to ignore it and move on and just like try to kind of not bring any more attention to it. That's kind of my take from it, because I think the outpouring, and there were people there that speak English that can pretty much say, hey, don't do that again. And so I think it's probably going to get nipped in the bud, but it was absolutely inappropriate, wrong place, wrong time, bad judgment.
Fair enough. But hopefully we won't see it again. We'll find out as we see Bone Soldier Jr. more on this tour. After that, they followed it up with a lightning match. That is called a Relámpago match. Relámpago for lightning in Spanish. And that means it's simply kind of the version of a high-speed match. It's a 10-minute time limit, one-on-one. And it was Tiger Mask against Magnus. Now, Magnus decided to go with a Black Tiger motif. He had gear that looked like Black Tiger. He worked like he was Black Tiger. He tugged at Tiger Mask's mask during the match, taunted him whenever he was, very heelish, Black Tigerish type of working style. Tiger Mask was working a little harder than he usually does in this one. He hit a crossbody from the top to the floor. Not that he doesn't work hard, but he doesn't take a lot of risks anymore like he did when he was younger, which you understand. He's been, I think he's in his 50s now. But he did get a butterfly suplex from the top on this one, so he was feeling his Wheaties there. He was really working hard. Hit a Tiger Driver at the bell, but it was indeed a time limit draw, 10 minutes. And Magnus attacked him afterwards and swiped the mask, pulled the mask off of Tiger Mask. So he was doing everything he could to be his version of the original Black Tiger. Of course, Mark Rollerball Rocco. Other Black Tigers include Eddie Guerrero and Rocky Romero. So a lot to live up to there. But I thought he was a good job being a heel for Tiger Mask.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of similarities and mentions made about Black Tiger in this. So the links were there. It was a good match. Time limit draw. They're definitely coming back to it.
We had an 8-man tag match after that, and it was LIJ. Now, LIJ was made up of Bushi, Tetsuya Naito, Titan, of course, back over for this one, and Kamae Tachi. Now, we wondered what Kamae Tachi was going to be. And as it turns out, it's just Hiromu Takahashi again. However, he does have a new suit. It is one that completely covers his body from neck to boots, everything. No skin left. The only thing is he still has his purple hair sticking out, the mask. So not too hard to figure out who Kamae Tachi is. And they faced Brillante Jr., El Desperado, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Stigma. And that one went 12 minutes and 50 seconds. So this was mostly comedy. It was fine. I enjoyed some of it. Taguchi was, ever since Nakamura left, he kind of does the bummer-ye instead of the bomaye. So instead of the running knees that Nakamura used to do, he does the hip attack with it. He does a couple of things where you grab the rope and lean all the way back like Nakamura used to do. Well, now he's taking on some Okada mannerisms, such as doing the Rainmaker pose and trying a Rainmaker. And it went about as well as you would think. He got rolled up and pinned when he couldn't hit the Rainmaker. I guess that is what the lesson is supposed to be there for him. But this is mostly a comedy match. And for me, Jeremy, the most amusing part of it was the members of LIJ picking on Hiromu by snatching little bits of the red fur off of the Kamae Tachi.
Not just them, everybody.
I think everybody tried to, yes. He didn't realize it until they had gotten a couple of pinches off of it from his own crew there. So, yeah, Kamae Tachi is that was his character when he was on excursion. When Hiromu was on excursion to CMLL, he was Kamae Tachi. He lost his mask in Mexico, but those rules don't totally apply to Japan. So this is a wink and a nod. Everyone in the world knows it's Hiromu under there. He knows, we know. And in post-match comments, he comes on as Hiromu, acting as Kamai Tache's manager. So again, we're a little looser atmosphere in Fantasticamania. It's more about fun than
he also
Fury.
looks like Salt Bay, the guy that does
He does. He really does.
The salt on the over-exaggerated salt
Yep.
drops
Yeah.
with the glasses and everything. It's pretty obnoxious.
Much less of a douchebag than the Salt Bay is, though.
True. You know what else is obnoxious, though? Was figuring out what the hell was going on during the Kamaya Tachi entrance when instead of the music that they use, and in hindsight, I think they've done this before, and I've forgotten about it, is that Hiromu beatboxed his own entrance into the stadium, and it wasn't good. It was awful beatboxing. It ended with him burping every 45, 50 seconds.
And coughing. Don't forget, he would trash his throat and cough through it as well.
Yes, it was the worst. So we're having an overdub of this with Walker Stewart somewhat talking in a muted voice, and we're watching everything happening in the ring. And if you've never seen it before, you're absolutely confused. They did it before the match, and they did it after the match. And then I realized what had happened, and I made my peace with it. But at the time, anger and hate.
There is you can find that music, the actual music that they play over the loudspeaker. For whatever reason, they don't have the rights to play that music outside of Japan, so we can't hear it on NJPW World. So what he did, he just basically beatboxed it there. But if anyone is going to get a scratchy voice, cough, and have to go off, he's taking my gimmick, Jeremy. I'm a little offended by that. That's my job.
You'll never be beat in the quality of work that you do when you do it, but he can try.
So anyway, that's what they're doing. So, but the problem was that music played for 10 minutes after this match. So it was a lot of beatboxing there.
We had a conversation about this because you hadn't watched it yet, and I warned you about it. And audience, the response that I got from Stephen Conway was, "Oh no, that is perfect. They can never replace that."
That's
and
right.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah.
Now look, Togi Makabe comes out to Led Zeppelin, and they can't play that. And so I want to hear Togi Makabe do beatbox Led Zeppelin on it for his music now. That's all I'm asking. I don't think it's too much.
So this was 6 matches on this show. The first 3 matches took up 28 minutes.
We were moving. It was a short show. It was a really short show, actually. And actually that fits in with CMLL as well. If you watch their Friday night shows, they can go 2 hours in and out, 5 matches. We're good. So they aren't the marathons sometimes that New Japan.
We may end up being a short show too.
Could be here today. We're almost 20 minutes in. We're doing fine. After that, we had a 6-man tag. Now, this is the reappearance of Seigo Okamura, who is back in Japan. He's spent most of his career in Mexico, and he's back here. They brought in Strong Machine J again. We have seen him from other promotions, Frontier Zones type of stuff. And they teamed up on one side against Dark Panther, Pegaso, and the Super Kokeshi Machine. That would be that we're pretty sure that's Tomoaki Honma. I'm feeling good about that guess there. That's between the voice and the working style. So he's in a little bit of a lucha gig. Mima Shimoda, a former All Japan women's wrestler, and a good one at that. Mima Shimoda was a terrific wrestler. She's married to Okamura. So she always comes out with him, and she gets a few spots in each year. This time she hit a senton on Honma. Always gets involved in some way or the other. And of course, between Okamura and Kokeshi Machine and things, there's some age involved in this match and some injuries and things. So not everybody is spry, but overall they know how to work. And this was just fine. Panther and Pegaso did some flying in it, but they saved most of that stuff for the later matches. Okamura ended up hitting a cutter to beat Pegaso, and we found out in comments, Jeremy, that Okamura had the mayor of his hometown there in attendance, and he is the sports ambassador, an honorary position for his hometown. So fun night for him. He got the victory. The mayor was there. He's the sports ambassador for his town. All around a happy night for a guy who only gets to visit Japan between Mexican appearances.
I feel like I've seen more Okamura in the last couple weeks between this and the MLW seconding of him with Satoshi Kojima and Alex Kane than I've seen in a very, very long time, if at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Okamura in my life lately.
He's been a long time Rudo in Japan, or in Mexico rather. And I mentioned before, he basically went off on an excursion and didn't come back. He just liked it there. They liked him. They just kept booking him, and he didn't come back. But Wato was a member of his group when Wato was on excursion, when he was Wato-san. That is just kind of a guy. They put some of the guys on excursion when they go over there. They put him with Okamura. You can show him around. He knows he's
part of the web of New Japan around the world that they just kind of like ship guys off. Makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And it's nice to see him every once in a while. So, but he is getting up there in age, so you're not going to expect the quality of matches from him is similar to things like Honma, although Honma was mostly due to his injury. But guys like Makabe, Tanahashi, a little too beat up to have 5-star matches or anything. But there he is.
We can be honest. There were a lot of guys taking the night off on the show.
Yeah, but I mean that's fine. Now the next match saw a sharp increase in skill level. So I'm ready to do these 6 names. We had Hechicero, Rocky Romero, and Soberano Jr. facing Atlantis Jr., Templario, and Volador Jr. And this one went 14:36. This was all kinds of fun, but it was a pure lucha match. All 6 of these guys working regularly in 2023 and before, but Romero had a strong run in 2023 in CMLL. The rest are CMLL regulars. All 6 are very talented, very well versed in this style. A lot of fun. A Lucha Libre match, a trios match in Lucha Libre, follows about the same kind of patterns here. You get some tumbling early. And what I mean by tumbling is because Lucha Libre came up in boxing rings in Mexico. Right. They don't have as many, not none, but fewer flat back bumps. They tend to do a lot of things like the Tijeras, which allow you to do a rolling bump, the head scissors. You get things like, monkey flips and things, but the arm drags and all that, so that you have a reason to do rolling bumps instead of flat backs. And there's a lot of tumbling early in the match. You'll see, the baby face is mostly getting over on that, climbing the ropes, coming off with arm drags and things like that. Then there's a period of selling for a while, and then as things build up, that's when you start to get the flying. That's when you start to get the things like the vaulting off the ropes and into the crowd, and all the moonsaults and sky twister presses and things. And it starts to get very, very interesting because those guys are very, very good at the flying. And this one worked that standard structure, and these guys are very smooth. They all work well together. In the end, of course, Rocky, who has been feuding with Volador Jr. for most of the year, got a win with a dude buster. And it continues that feud, which we will revisit later on in the tour. But this match was terrific, worth going out of your way to watch.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like you said, there are links to this and New Japan that we should probably make clear if you're joining us for the first time. So Soberano Jr. and Atlantis Jr. were tag team partners in the World Tag League, and Soberano turned on Atlantis at the end of the tour and turned to Rudo. So now that is picking up here back in New Japan between those two. You mentioned Volador Jr. and Rocky Romero had their feud that went mostly through 2023. And, they both ended up better for it, frankly speaking. And then Templario has been around on the Fantasticamania tours as long as I can remember. And then Hechicero made his name recently in the Collision show with that match against Daniel Bryan. And now he's aiming to have a match with Zack Sabre Jr., much along the same lines that he had with Bryan Danielson. So those are pretty much what you should know about those guys if you are interested in following up further with the CMLL aspect of this.
And again, just a terrific match. And we'll be seeing various combinations of these guys as we go through the tour. They will mix it up a little bit. You rarely see the same match twice on one of these tours. So the main event was a 6-man tag match with Hiroshi Tanahashi, Mascara Dorada, who has become one of the very top guys in CMLL at a young age, and Mistico, who is one of the legends. So Mistico, of course, formerly, Caristico before that. And before that, he was in WWE. So that. And they faced Francisco Akira, Stuka Jr., and Ultimo Guerrero. Ultimo Guerrero, one of the all-time legends as well. And Akira, who had recovered enough from that brutal cage match to work this and then go back to his Rudo style a little here. So he was with Stuka Jr. and Ultimo. Tanahashi was feeling playful. He came out with his face painted to say Presidente across it, so which I did appreciate. And the Guerreros are a terrific team. They hit a press slam off the buckle on Dorada. I just got done saying how they don't do too many flat back pumps, but this is where both Guerreros get up on the middle rope. They press slam Mascara Dorada off of the top turnbuckle it's a long way down. That's a long bump. But when you watch the Guerreros do this, they could not have put him down any safer. Just completely flat back, just perfect. So, these guys know what they're doing. Stuka is a very thick-built guy. He's burly, but he moves very well. It belies his shape and size there. It's not that he's heavy at all. It's just he's built like a fire hydrant. He's almost like an Ishii type out there, but he moves really well. And Mascara Dorada hit a springboard to the top into a Tijeras to Ultimo Guerrero on the floor. That looked very, very cool. And, of course, the barricades are down for Fantasticamania. They keep that down. And I'll tell you what, if you had a middle first row seat, you probably had a luchador in your lap at least once through this show.
At least once.
At least.
It was a loose barrier around the ring. And because it's CMLL and you know that they were jumping, they don't really have barriers around the ring. They're kind of like, it's not as, no, I'm sorry. They do, but it's not, it feels like it's pushed back a little bit more because of,
do you mean in Arena Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in Arena Mexico, they have solid barricades like WWE does, but they're seriously 15 feet back from the ring. Right. They have so much space.
So, the space differences are, their limitations are a little bit different here.
Well, the barricades in Osaka were Shomakato and Murashima. Those are the two barricades. They had to just stand in front of these people and take the shots and keep the guys from just totally wiping out the front row. Although part of the fun is sitting there. It's like Splash Zone at a Gallagher show. But in the end, Dorada hit a shooting star press on Ultimo Guerrero to win. Mascara Dorada. He's not the first person to wear that hood and that outfit. And keep in mind, again, the Mexican wrestling culture is very different. CMLL operates differently than other companies do in the sense that if they have a hit act like Mistico and the guy leaves, they'll get another guy to put under the mask, the same mask and call the same character. It's a different mindset there. This guy used to be Panterita del Ring he's still young, but he started as a teenager. This guy's phenomenal, and he's a really talented guy, and he is a possible heir to the Mistico babyface mode there. And right now, the crowd is taking to him. He's athletic as hell. He has the charisma. He has that babyface stuff down and taking pictures with the kids and everything else. And you can tell he's learned a lot from Mistico on that. So seeing basically two generations of aces is almost like the Tanahashi Umino thing, where we're looking at the future version of this. Anyway, he's worth keeping your eye on anytime you get a chance to see him wrestle. Very, very good. Very fun match. The shooting star press on Ultimo Guerrero to win for the babyfaces.
I don't have much to say other than I just had fun watching this show, and shout out to Walker Stewart for doing an English translation for this show this year. I had a hard time with it last year without the English translation while trying to watch it for the show. So he made my life a lot easier this year with him doing the English translation live.
And, it takes a day to shake off the jet lag, really. It's a long trip over to Japan, and also to get used to the ring. The ring is built differently in Japan than it is from Mexico. So there were a couple of times when guys would try to jump up to the ropes, and they might have to steady themselves a little bit when they don't normally have to in Mexico, just because the ring's a little different. That's something that comes out in a day or two. But the last two matches of this show were a lot of fun and definitely worth going out of your way to see. And not terribly long. 14:36 for the semifinal, 14:53 for the main event. You're in and out in a half an hour, and you've seen two really good wrestling matches. So I recommend it.
Bell to bell was an hour and 10 minutes. And with all the entrances, you'll probably have another 30 minutes. You could get in and out of the show in 2 hours if you really wanted to watch a show and get all the context out of it. And it was fun, fun but disposable. Sometimes wrestling is good when you can just be like popcorn. Let's have some fun and enjoy ourselves.
That seemed to be what the crowd was doing too. They seemed to really enjoy it. Now they were in action the next day on February 13th. That was Tuesday, and that was also from Osaka. Now, Jeremy, you know I'm a venue nerd, right? I love the buildings. This was from the Towa Pharmaceutical Rectab Dome Sub Arena.
Okay.
Classic building, right? No, not at all. It's from the Kadoma Sports Center, part of that one. It's a big gym there. And, like I said, I'm a big venue nerd, but I've barely heard of this place. And there is record of only one other show being from this building at all. And it was another New Japan show, and it was another house show, like day 9 of a Road 2 tour from a couple of years ago. So this is not a commonly used building. Maybe the prefectural gym was booked for Tuesday, and they had to go about. This was about a 20-minute drive northeast of the downtown Osaka for this one. So
I
who
don't
knows?
think I've ever heard of this arena before.
Yeah, and
I'm Pharmaceutical
Rectab Dome Sub Arena.
Nope, never heard of it. I'm paying attention to the arena and trying to get better at that when you do the talk, and I'm like, the what? No.
Yeah,
no wonder it's not been televised.
It matters to me. I was a sucker. When we would go on vacation, we would drive everywhere instead of flying. And whenever we were going through a city, I would love to get a glance, even if it was just a short look, at the baseball stadium or the basketball arena or the football stadium. I was just always fascinated by the buildings in which these events take place. So I tend to dive into that probably more than anybody wants to hear, but I enjoy it. So there we go.
I lived about 15 minutes away from a baseball stadium growing up, like a Major League Baseball stadium. And so I drive past in front of the freeway, and it didn't occur to me that wasn't like commonplace for everybody.
Yeah.
That made sense.
What was it, Candlestick?
No, it was Angel Stadium down in Orange County.
Oh, I didn't realize you grew up closer to Anaheim. Okay, all right. Gotcha.
Oh yeah, I was an Orange County kid. One time at Boy Scouts, I rode my bike from the beach to Angel Stadium for a baseball game, and then we got it right back.
Did you grow up at Disneyland too? Did you go to Disneyland?
I spent a lot of time at Disneyland growing up. I was an upper middle class kid who was privileged enough to have an annual pass before they were $800 a year.
Yeah. Well, but for someone that lived there, an annual pass made sense because everyone who visited you wanted to go, right?
I could go after school if I wanted to for like the age 16 to 18 before I moved away for college. I could just go after school and just go to Disneyland or whatever I wanted. I think there were a couple of blackout days, but it was a great deal at the time,
Sure.
And I went back to Disneyland a couple of years ago, just revisiting everything. Everything's changed. It's all changes every time. So
they keep doing that to us, don't they? Don't they know they're supposed to leave everything exactly how we remember it?
Yeah, that never happens.
Never does. So anyway, over at the Towa Pharmaceutical Rectab Dome Sub Arena, they had another series of matches. This is not a lot. There's not a lot of canon here, and I feel like if I just read off these results to you, that it would just sound like a big word salad of names. I'll hit a couple of things that's worth mentioning. This time, the Guerreros and Francesco Akira got the win against Desperado, Mascara Dorada, and Mistico. So a little bit of a get back there for the heels. Tanahashi this time teamed with Templario and Volador on the Technico side. Technicos are the baby faces of Japan, defeating Doki, Rocky Romero, and Soberano Jr. there. So, again, these are just kind of quick little shows here. These are very much house shows, not so much canon there. They were in Takamatsu on Valentine's Day, February the 14th.
Oh, what else is interesting about yesterday's show on the 13th?
Go ahead. What's it? Yes. You're absolutely right. Yeah, Musashi, who was, of course, he's one of the Michinoku Pro guys that we've seen a couple times. Yeah,
he has left that, and I believe this is his first night with New Japan, or at least more full-time with New Japan. And you can kind of see that they put him where Master Wado was supposed to be in a lot of these things. So that kind of gives you an idea what their plans might be for him, or at least the general level of what they think of him.
Takamatsu, 743 folks showed up for that one. And like you mentioned, he was a part of that team. He was working with Dark Panther and Pegaso against Doki, Magnus, and Okamura. And Doki, Magnus, and Okamura won that one. We also had the main event was Desperado, Hechicero, and Ultimo Guerrero. So Despe, a little bit on the Rudo side, defeated Atlantis Jr., Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Mistico. So that was that. And we
okay
on
with
the
Naruto.
and of course, he was it Namahage, and when he was in Mexico, Rocky Romero teamed with El Soberano and Stuka again on the Rudo side against Mascara Dorada. Man, I'm sorry, I keep bumbling that. El Templario and Volador. That was the Technico side of that one. And then Kamaya Itachi has been on both these shows. This was the LIJ group. They defeated Bolton Oleg, Stigma, Tomoaki Honma, who I'm guessing was Kokoshi Machine, and Tiger Mask number 4. So that's kind of how that went there in Takamatsu.
Good times. I didn't see any of these. I'm taking your word for all of it.
Yeah, you can't. They're not on. And then we move on to some shows that will be on NJPW World. So Friday, tomorrow, in Nagoya. And here are the top matches in that one. We have Desperado and Bryan Jr. against Naito and Kamaya Itachi. I bring that one up just because 3 of the 4 people in it are, Hiromu, Naito, and Desperado. Bryan is good too, but that should be a pretty good match. We'll have Yo, Tanahashi, and Atlantis Jr. against Musashi, who you mentioned from Michinoku Pro, Taguchi, and Hechicera. And then they're also doing the first round of a faction tag team tournament. And the semifinals will be in Friday in Nagoya with the finals and the third place match. So the winners and the losers will square off in Chiba on Saturday. So the semifinals, Magnus and Volador Jr. against Pagaso and Stigma. The other one is Bushi and Titan from LIJ against Stuka and Ultimo Guerrero. So
you got any predictions?
Yeah, my hunch is telling me that that's going to be Magnus and Volador over Pagaso and Stigma. I think Volador's a little too big of a star to be knocked out of that one. And I feel like LIJ probably going to get a bit of a push there and get the win over Stuka and Ultimo and go into the finals in Chiba. What do you think?
I would not be surprised if the Pegasus team won, but I think you're right. Volador and Magnus, and then Bushi and Titan seems like a solid block on the other side.
But I mean, Stuka and Ultimo Guerrero are bona fide stars too. So.
Absolutely.
Saturday, February 17th in Chiba, they move on. Now, this one like I mentioned, they will have the 2 losers of those semifinals will be in a third place match. Then they'll have the finals as well. We're also going to see a special women's tag featuring 2 wrestlers from Stardom facing 2 of the women from CMLL. So we will have La Jarochita and Lluvia, which I believe is rain in Spanish, against Starlight Kid and Ruaka. So that's going to be February 17th in Chiba. We'll get to see that one. I'm looking forward to seeing Starlight and Ruaka take on some of the CMLL women. I've been watching the Friday night shows from Arena Mexico, and to say that the women's division has made strides in CMLL over the last few years is the understatement of the year. It is night and day. We know Stephanie Vaquer is really good, but they're building depth where pre-pandemic, I'll say, the women's match was not the highlight of those shows. Just weren't back then. But some of the women have greatly improved. They have some new talent in, and we're seeing some terrific stuff.
They put the work in the women's division there, and I'm really excited for it. I think it's interesting that we're getting more Stardom incorporation into these New Japan shows now that the management has changed over Stardom, and we shall see whether this is good or bad for the promotion going in the future.
Another tag match is interesting. They're doing one of those babyface heel groups. They're called, Revalos Increíbles matches. Rocky Romero, El Desperado, and Tiger Mask. So you've got a little bit of babyface, a little bit of Rudo in there against Mascara Dorada, Mistico, the ultimate 2 babyfaces, and Francesco Akira, who's been doing a lot of Rudo work, but I guess he can be the babyface in this one as well. Or, like I said, it's mixture of babyface and heel where they are forced to team up together. And that could be interesting stuff. But Akira's good at this stuff. So I think this will be a terrific one right there. A little sleeper match there that might be as good as anything else on the card.
So is that Chaos and Hontai with United Empire and unaffiliated, basically?
Yeah, basically. So, yeah. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
It should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
like I'm just saying. It's all just party matches.
Well, yeah, you remember when we picked out like Gabe Kidd and Hanare? We're like, oh, wait a minute, you know what? That's probably it's not the featured match, but it's gonna be the best match of the weekend.
That
This
was
could
gonna
be
slap right there. Hey, this is gonna slap.
After that, they wrap things up with 2 nights at Korakuen Hall. That's Sunday and Monday, February 18th and 19th. And on the 18th, we have a special challenge match between Titan and Brillante Jr. And then we have a Black Cat Memorial match. I'll tell you more about that in a second. This is going to be Desperado, Stigma, Mascara Dorada, and Mistico against Defunto, Akira, Stuka Jr., and Ultimo Guerrero. So the Black Cat was a Mexican wrestler who spent most of his career in Japan, almost the opposite of Okamura. His name is Victor Mar Manuel. He began in the UWA promotion in 1976. And that, Jeremy, in the mid-70s, UWA was a major, major company. It's since gone out of business. But especially in the 70s, early 80s, UWA, I mean, Mascaras was with that. I believe, if you go back far enough, El Santo. But this was a major promotion, and they would work with some of the biggest names in wrestling. Fujinami would go over there. So would, I think, Inoki even worked for him a couple times. Don't quote me on that. I should probably have looked that up before I said it. But major names would work with the UWA. This was not some small thing in Mexico at the time. It was absolutely a major promotion, just like EMLL, which is what this company was before it was CMLL. Anyway, he wrestled there from 1977 to 1981. 1981 was a pivotal year because that was the year Satoru Sayama debuted in New Japan as Tiger Mask and changed the way people looked at junior heavyweight wrestling. And it became the tumbling, flying spectacle that we know and love now. And he needed rivals. Now, they knew enough because he had wrestled in England that 2 really good opponents for him, and I'm talking about Sayama there, 2 really good opponents for him were Dynamite Kid, and another one was Mark Rocco. And he was called Rollerball Rocco in England. Now they put
Rollerball Rocket.
They put him in a black mask and a black suit and called him the original Black Tiger. Well, they didn't call him the original Black Tiger; they just called him Black Tiger. They didn't know he was the original one until later. But he was Black Tiger.
Later known as the original Black Tiger.
But Tiger Mask needed more rivals. And what they found was that Victor Mar Manuel worked really well with him. So they made him the Black Cat. So you see how they kind of had to, you have Black Tiger, Black Cat to counter the Tiger Mask, the colorful good guy. So they're putting like the dark side of him. He has to fight the dark side of him right there. And who's the guy that likes the opposite of everything in Superman?
Bizarro?
Yeah, like the Bizarro Tiger Mask. It's like the Tiger Mask were evil. Anyway, he was the Black Cat, and he was another one of Satoru Sayama's early rivals as the original Tiger Mask. So he worked there for a long time. He was in New Japan from 1981 to 2003. So 22 years, really. And he had a little bit of a swing in 1994 when he went back to Mexico to work for AAA, when AAA was on fire. And they were bringing in people and all that. The AAA in those days was a very big promotion. And he also did some jobs for WCW in about 1998 or so. But most of that time, he was working as a wrestler, and then even did some refereeing late in his career for New Japan. And he did die of a heart attack in 2006 at the age of only 51. But this match is a bit of a tribute to him. So a Black Cat memorial match in this one. So that 8-man tag on February 18th in Korakuen, dedicated to Victor Mar Manuel, who was one of the better junior heavyweight hands in New Japan Pro Wrestling for a long time.
Wow. This is what we have you here for. The history lesson of all history lessons, man.
the other match.
I was actually impressed. You threw a Superman reference at me there for a second.
I'm trying to keep
up. Since you were talking about Mark Rollerball Rocco, you might have gotten British with me for a sec and made a Doctor Who reference where Tiger Mask would have been the doctor and Black Tiger would have been the master. And then everyone would have been like, wow, you are the biggest effing nerd in the world. Get off my TV.
Well, can I just confess one thing is I have seen all of 4 episodes of Doctor Who ever, and one of them is off of BritBox, which is the very first episode of the original black and white one from the 60s. which is pretty good, by the way.
You know, there's a lot of episodes of Doctor Who, so you've really just had a drop in the bucket. It's not for everybody.
And then I watched what is it, Christopher Ecclestone, the reboot?
Yes.
I've seen about 4 episodes of that. And
that was kind of considered not the best version of Doctor Who in the contemporary times.
I understand. I'm supposed to get to David Tennant, right? And I'm supposed to get to David Tennant, right? My sister keeps telling me David Tennant is the best.
David Tennant, Matt Smith, there's a couple others in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm working my way.
I totally blanked on the old guy and then the lady. And then we're back at David Tennant. And then there's actually 2 doctors now, Nikuti Gatwa and David Tennant. It gets very corrupt. It's all science fiction, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. Let's get back to New Japan, which is a lot more grounded in fake reality.
With that in mind, we have a whole bunch of mask guys that's much more realistic. Soberano Jr. and Templario, Volador Jr. versus Rocky Romero. So again, this is one of the biggest feuds of 2023 in CMLL that is now being brought. We've seen it before in New Japan. In fact, I think it might have been part of Fantasticamania last year. We might have gotten a little bit of it. But Rocky's fantastic at this. He and Volador are magic together. That'll be a good match there on the 18th. On the 19th, this is Monday, we will have a classic one here, Mistico and Ultimo Guerrero. Now, this is all longtime rivals, 2 legends of Mexican wrestling facing one another. And then the younger version of that, we have Mascara Dorada and Stuka Jr. underneath that. And that's going to be the 19th. Those are the main 2 matches on the 19th. And the rest of the card will be mixing and matching the rest of the tour in 8-man, 6-man tags, and sometimes just 2-on-2, that type of thing. But
I mean, if you look at this last card is basically once you get past the 5th match has Tanahashi in it and Rocky and Desperado and Musashi, but after that, it's all CMLL guys. They're just like, all right, CMLL, it's your turn. Just have the show.
Right. And then usually that ends with everybody in the ring kind of waving to everybody. It's a very different thing than what we normally get from New Japan. It's just a different vibe, different feel. Again, it's supposed to be a lot of fun. It's supposed to be playful, and that's the version of New Japan. It's a nice change of pace for me because after that, we're going to go right back into some very, very heavy stuff with because after that comes New Beginning in Sapporo.
Well, we got Mascara Dorada versus Stuka Jr. is the main event on the 19th. And then the 23rd, the main event is what? Finley and Nick Nemeth?
Right. And again, we're
what a shift.
Yeah. Some New Japan adjacent news. And I want to bring this up here since we're talking CMLL. The Blackpool Combat Club is going to Arena Mexico. And of course, we've gotten to know several members of the Blackpool Combat Club from their time in New Japan. And it's going to be Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, Claudio, and I believe Wheeler, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yuta going into the Arena Mexico main event. And we mentioned when Danielson appeared at Wrestle Kingdom that he was knocking items off of his bucket list, that Bryan Danielson was trying to go and do all the things he always wanted to do as he begins to wind his career down, or he says he's going to. We'll see. No one ever really retires, although I believe Bryan Danielson when he says he wants to. We'll see if he can. It's an addictive business, wrestling. Again, I don't think Bryan's lying, but I'll wait to see if he actually retires. Either way, he is going through a lot of his bucket list right here, and Wrestle Kingdom was one of them. You saw, I hope people went back and saw his reaction to the Zack Sabre match, where he just looked like he had the time of his life. He ended his backstage comments with, what was it? Bless New Japan. I love this place, and walked up. And now his other big thing was he wanted to have a match in Arena Mexico. I think Bryan Danielson would have been perfectly content to be one of the guys in a 3rd match on the card trios match, to say that he just worked in Arena Mexico. Instead, he is main eventing Dos Leyendas. It's their 2nd biggest show of the year.
Rolling out the red carpet.
It's like their SummerSlam. It's like their Dominion, whatever you want to call it. 2nd biggest show of the year. I guess Royal Rumble's 2nd biggest these days. But point being, only the Anniversario show, the anniversary show, is a bigger deal for CMLL than Dos Leyendas. Dos Leyendas, 2 legends. where they pay tribute to the founder of the company, Salvador Luderoth, and then another legend that they choose. And this is a huge one. He's main eventing, so he gets to have a big match at the Tokyo Dome. He gets to have that big match against Zack Sabre Jr. He's probably going to be, as long as he's not injured, a huge part of the big show in London. And now he's going to get to main event in Arena Mexico. Bryan Danielson living his best life.
I only wish that we could all just easily check off the bucket list thing because we are so awesome at what we do. what a life he lives.
Yeah. I'm happy for him, though, aren't you? I mean, this is something that he honestly didn't think he was going to do.
What was it? 6 years ago, he wasn't wrestling at all, and, I was listening to the Bryan and Vinny show, and they're recapping 2019, where he's having a match with Kofi for Kofi Mania, and, he's wrestling, but it's nothing like what we're seeing now. And it's just a renaissance. He is wrestling without limitation, but wrestling smart, and we're all just along for the ride. I'm super stoked for it. So
what we're going to do here is, like I said, short week this week. There's not a whole lot of wrestling to talk about. We were back on Monday. Remember, if you want to hear our breakdown of an amazing and intense New Beginning in Osaka show, make sure you go back and check that out.
We didn't like it at all. If you want to hear everything about we didn't like about the show, go back and check out that episode, because you can then argue with us about how wrong we are about our opinions about the show. There's nothing that works better than making people angry on the internet to get them to want to talk about something.
That's right. And if there's two guys who can't stand New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's us, Spike Craig.
Oh, man. What a waste of our time. 91 episodes and counting of time wasters.
But you can go back and get that. And like I said, this one we've previewed this coming week. So next week on the show, we're going to be talking about we're going to have a lot more content to go over. So we'll talk about the end of the Fantasticamania tour, and then we will preview what's going to be an intense couple days in Sapporo. So once again, Jeremy, let's run down what we're going to see in Sapporo very quickly, and then we'll do the full preview next week. On Friday, February 23rd, we will have a Frontier Zone match with Tomoya from DDT and Toru Yano teaming up against Shomakato and Tomoaki Honma. We will have a Chaos versus United Empire 10-man tag in Kazuchika Okada's second to last New Japan match. We will have LIJ versus Just Five Guys for, by our count, the 907th time. We will also have the IWGP Women's title, Mayu Iwatani, champion, against Mina Shirakawa, the challenger. Special challenge match there, Desperado versus Sho, where Desperado is putting up the title, and allegedly Sho is putting up his affiliation with House of Torture. So we'll see how that turns out. The never open weight title, Shota Umino versus Evil. The champion, Shota challenger. 2 more title matches. Matt Riddle challenging Hiroshi Tanahashi for the television title. And then the IWGP Global title in the main event. Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler, challenging David Finlay. And that is Friday, February 23rd.
That show's going to be pretty good.
Yes, I think so too. And on the 24th, here's what we have in store for that day. A Frontier Zone match again with Tomoya and Yano, this time against Murashima and Honma. So the young lions getting reps there. We will have Okada's final New Japan match. He's already out of contract, but this is his last New Japan match for a while. In a 10-man tag with UE. It's the official farewell match, so to speak. We will also see another farewell, Tama Tonga coming back for a match with Tongaloa teaming up to face the, not the next generation GOD, but their GOD stablemates, Hikuleo and El Phantasmo. So a little GOD on GOD violence there. We will have Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura in a hair versus hair match as part of a series of singles matches featuring LIJ and Just Five Guys. We're also
coming back live because of this match, guys. Yeah. This is the reason we're coming back to do a post show on this one. If nothing more than their match.
Also seeing Bushi versus Taka Michinoku, Hiromu Takahashi versus Doki, Shingo Takagi and Taichi. Interesting to note there, of course. Remember, Taichi is often booked very strong in Sapporo. It's his home area. And so this might be a way to get Taichi over in a big way, or at least it's always a story if he loses in Sapporo. So there you go. And then the World Heavyweight title on the line, IWGP World Championship, Tetsuya Naito defending against Sanada. So there you go. That's what we're going to be.
Wonder what happens there.
That's what we're going to be previewing and breaking down a week from now. But yeah, Jeremy, Fantasticamania week, like I said, just kind of a little lighthearted romp. And with that, I think we've covered anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap this one up.
There's one more thing that we did not touch on this past week that was
please.
New Japan adjacent.
Okay.
And that was on AEW Collision right before the big show that we had. There was a quiet little main event match between Orange Cassidy and Tomohiro Ishii. And let me tell you, this was exactly what you would think an Orange Cassidy versus Tomohiro Ishii match would be. There was the comedy spots in the beginning where Ishii was not putting up with any of OC's crap until the point we got him in the corner and beat him mercilessly. And then once they got through some of the comedy, we got some of the great stuff, drop kicks, beach breaks, punches, vertical brain busters, the whole deal. Everything that you would think it would happen in a match, they picked it up. We got all the way through and he tried to beat him with an orange punch, but ended up having to Cassidy get him with an inside cradle to beat Tomohiro Ishii in the match. And then, post-match angles galore. But for the main event match, a tremendous little palate cleansing Ishii match against one of the most talented wrestlers on the AEW roster, Orange Cassidy.
I also saw that Minoru Suzuki is basically looking for bookings internationally. He just posted an email address to get in touch with if you wanted to book Minoru Suzuki. So I think we're going to be seeing perhaps less of him touring with New Japan and spending more time going around the world. He's always had that deal where he can do other things, but it looks like that's what he's really focusing on. And
it
we're
may
probably
end up being that with the rebuild, New Japan may be looking to spend their money a little more frugally, and he may not be expensive, but he's also not cheap. And if they can get their money worth elsewhere, they're going to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And just for him, we've seen him do matches on a bullet train. We've seen him do matches in playgrounds, and he is sort of going through his late career thing of just knocking off like, you know what? I never tried that before. I'll try it now. That type of thing.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my match on a bullet train. I'm going to do my match at a floating pool.
Yeah, but just knocking some things off the list. Not necessarily that he always dreamed of doing it, but I think you can probably catch his attention if you give him something he's never done before.
Yeah, if he's interested in it, he's game.
Yeah, and it's something he couldn't do when he was under full contract with either All Japan, New Japan, or whoever else. And late in his career, I think he's just taking the opportunity to have a little fun. Why not?
Absolutely. All right. That's it for me.
That's it for us here. So don't forget about the other shows on the Fight Game Media Network. Power Bombshells will be back on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We've got Dynamite show after Dynamite. Go figure. That's when I'd have it too if I could. We have the Wrap and all those other things covering the run-up to WrestleMania. We got it covered. You can't watch everything. It's impossible. But with Fight Game Media, we can give you the gist of everything you need to know to keep up with this wonderful industry we call pro wrestling.
Like, subscribe, share, all the things. I personally want to say we had a fantastic week of interaction and people checking out our show the last week with everything. Thank you for that. And we hope that more people check out our show. And thank you if you're checking out for the first time.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for Speaking of Strong Style this week. For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will talk to you again real soon.